Hello, Anson.
Oh, there we go. Where are we here? There we go.
Peggy, I like your background.
Yeah, how'd you know I wasn't there?
She called me yesterday. I thought she was in Bath County again.
Yeah.
My granddaughter taught me how to do backgrounds.
Yeah.
Except Peggy, remember, you can't lean too far back because parts of you will disappear into the background.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Your meeting should be going live any minute.
How's it
Okay.
going, Brian?
Good.
Cool, man. Good to see you.
We're only missing Paul and Mark. Hi, Emily.
I'm sure this is a big meeting on a lot of people's plans this morning, on a Friday morning to join the committee.
Who wouldn't jump to be here?
You know, Roxanne, maybe not for this one, but I've been noticing when I check the various social media sites the city has, that we've had 300-400 views
Oh
Is
my
that right? From the tree commission.
for our monthly meeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've actually had some shout outs from people on Twitter.
Oh, that was great. Yeah.
So there are some ways in which the pandemic has not only increased the possibility of civic participation,
Yeah.
but from our perspective, it's great. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the fact that more people can see what we're doing.
Yeah.
Brian Wheeler, you'll allow me to share my screen, is that right?
Yes, I've already turned that on.
Okay. There's Paul.
Mike, how are you doing today, man?
We'd like to have Mark here. He told me he was going to take notes.
Sorry.
Hi, gang.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
How y'all doing?
Okay.
Nice Saturday out here.
Saturday?
I mean, sorry, Friday. No. It's Friday. Sorry, I'm mentally thinking it's Friday already. Had a nice morning so far. Went over to the skateboard park, Mike, this morning. Check out the trees over there. Ride my board around early before the kids get there. Definitely the oldest person out there by about 30 years, it seemed like, by the time I left. But it looks good.
Are you the only one with your pads on?
I do have a helmet. And I have some biking gloves in case I turf myself, but I didn't do the full pads, sort of trusting myself not to do the big stuff, essentially.
Oh, we got to talk, man. I actually got some really nice honey locust veneers, and we made a skateboard last year with those that turned out all right, but I can't skateboard. I had a vacuum press that we had access to, but we actually made a couple of decks, and I would love to get your thoughts on those.
Hey, let me know. The
right.
sound of a honey locust skateboard sounds kind of cool.
Yeah,
They were really fun to make.
interrupt.
Everything comes back to trees with this group.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anson, Brian Wheeler, are we live?
Yes, you
Oh.
are. Yeah.
Yes, we're live. All right.
Good. So all the people out there, thanks, Brian. Yeah. So everyone now knows about my morning and how I snuck out to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Come on.
I guess we ought to look serious if we're live now.
All right.
Let's see.
Don't mind the mess behind me. Anyway, sorry. So
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Brian Wheeler, for hosting us, and Brian Ray and Mike for being here. We'll get started. Mark was supposed to be here, and I hope he will come because he was going to take notes, but in the meantime, I'll do that. So thank you for sharing your Friday noon for us on this beautiful day. It looks the same outside as it does in Bath County. So we'll get started. So the main reason we're meeting today is to prepare for, and I have 2 grandchildren here that may appear in just a minute, but my husband's supposed to take them to the skate park, by the way. Anyway, so our main purpose today is to really prepare for the council meeting presentation, which is tentatively set for December 21st, which Brian will, or our Brian Maynard will present. So we want to do 2 things, go over our charts that we do. and to and then look and see how we're going to present them or anything else for our council meeting. So we'll first do the charts. And I'm going to, excuse me if I'm having to lean in here. Let me bring them up on the screen. All right. Do I have to say share my screen? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Green button at the bottom.
Okay.
All right.
Everybody got them?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So Roxanne and Mark and I have been meeting and looking at some of these charts. They're not finished yet, but so we'll go through them. One of the things we thought we should, on most of them anyway, have information from 2016. Let's see. I think that's the main thing here that Mark was talking about. We have numbered them so that from now on there's some order to them. And this is our best guess of how they should go. Number one would be, let's see now.
Can I just interrupt and just to ask a question? So when we're looking at these charts, we're making the assumption that there's both a written report as well as a presentation, that a written report goes to council for them to do ahead of time, but the presentation that Brian will do will actually be some type of a PowerPoint or visual presentation. Is that correct?
Yes, and yes.
And I can talk a little bit to what you had a question, Peggy, about the different files that I sent over.
Yes.
So of those files that I sent over, I sent, usually what we do is we have almost, there's kind of three pieces to this. We usually submit, well, last year, Roxanne wrote a really nice sort of summary that had these graphics included in that sort of summary. So it sort of talked about, here's kind of the state of the forest in a nice sort of very almost like a newsletter type thing that was a couple, maybe 2 pages or so. That document went ahead to council in advance, as well as a line by line sort of Microsoft Word sheet that just says like all the things we did in the past year. And that's just kind of like everything we did. That's just, we don't typically go through that line by line with council. We don't really read this report to council, but this is the thing that goes into their packet that they get and they can read in advance if they choose, and hopefully they do. And then we did the PowerPoints that just said, here's where we're at in the city, and sort of summarizes that more graphically in a way that's easier to present. And I sent 2 PowerPoints over. One was last year's presentation to council, and then one was just the one that I made, the state of the forest that I made this year as a summary of where the tree commission's at, which I thought could probably be a decent starting point for this year's presentation. Like it's pretty darn close to kind of ready. It's kind of like a bit of a follow-up from last year, but with a little bit more information provided.
So while we're on this subject, and I know it was last on your agenda, Peggy, but just to finish this, that presentation, the State of the Forest 2019 fall that you just referenced, it's like 30 some odd slides. I watched your presentation last year, even though it felt like it was in the middle of the night. Did you really go through all, I mean, I may be mistaken, did you really go through all 36 slides, and how long did they give you to present?
Mike, do you recall how much time I had?
It was probably like 20 minutes. So I think we got through them all, but it was pretty quick towards the end.
I definitely know I had to go quickly through them. I think I had about 15 minutes. I think 15 to maybe 20 minutes with questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I recall, because we just should keep that in mind. And if we're going to send that kind of presentation, that should really be the maximum. Because obviously the one you did this year, which is it's great. It's really comprehensive.
Too long.
But
this one, the one from this year is, it's 40 minutes or so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think cutting it down to the most critical slides, and then the points in the end of the packet are, I think, the most critical ones about like, here's what we need you to do.
So
I don't know whether the city gives any guidelines either about whether they want 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but we might ask
Yeah,
Ryan.
I
what
will definitely check with clerk. Because the
let me
situation may be
clarify.
a little different this year because they're scheduling us for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I don't know how much time they're allotting, and according to, I think it was clerk said that they really want presentations. So there may be other presentations that day. So anyway, I'll work that out, but
Let me clarify with you, Paul. So first of all, you sent to council beforehand, the written activities report and the written report that include these slides.
Correct.
But you did not send the PowerPoint presentation. You gave the PowerPoint presentation to City Council.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's what I just wanted to make.
and let me just jump in and say that I think the thrust of that PowerPoint presentation should very much track what we just sent them as a statement
Yeah.
Right.
for the strategic plan. I really think that that's our outline, frankly.
Yeah.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. So now we're straight. We've talked about item 2 on our agenda, really, but we'll get back to that. But we've clarified again that we will send beforehand the written report, which really has more to do with these slides and a list of activities that we've done this year. And then at City Council, Brian will give the PowerPoint presentation, which will, the State of the Forest 2020 is sort of the basic thing. We won't look at it today, but that will be reduced, but that's sort of a guideline for us.
Yeah, and let me add one more point on the list of activities. Obviously, we had a hiatus. What I intend to do is to show for that period of time the activities of individual commissioners during that period, which is what I shared with the commission when we first met again in August, because it's a substantial list of things that we continue to do to advocate continuing education, all the things that we did individually, but as representatives of the tree commission unofficially. I
Right.
think it's important for council to see that because that shows that we continue to be engaged and also that the work doesn't stop.
Mhm.
Yeah, good idea. All right, so let's start with chart number 1. And let me just tell you, I'm going to try to get through this meeting in an hour because, many of you are working. So we'll keep going. So on this first chart, let's see if there are any revisions. I'll just start. There are a couple things in the text that need to change. I think the I is left off. And also the aerial survey will be completed in 2021. So anything else that you all see that needs to change on this?
I've got a question, Peggy.
Okay.
This is Brian Ray.
Yeah, all right.
Usually when I send these charts over, sort of down on the bottom of the chart, there's a little narrative area where there's text typed in there. And we've always had a lot of back and forth about what that is. But here I see sort of narrative over on the side. Can I just send the charts just free of narrative? Just here's the chart, and then you guys put your narrative in the document instead of me putting it in this actual chart.
That makes sense to me.
I think that makes
Usually we
much
can't read the
easier.
text, just the way it's too small and it's hard to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll clean that up, and it'll just be literally the chart that I'll send over.
And
All right.
Brian, I don't know if it's possible to adjust the font of the 2009, 2004, the bottom text, so that it's sort of the same as the top size. I don't know if like the top, it's really clear, total tree canopy 2004 to 2014. But then when you get below the green bars, the 2004, 2009, 2014 just seem a little bit small, so that, I don't know, any way that you can sort of up those. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, that'd be easy.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Sorry, I'm
So
jumping ahead.
if y'all can see right now, usually on charts like this one, we had some text at the bottom.
Yeah.
Are we going to continue to have text at the bottom or not? And Brian, you put this text, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what I just asked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That text on the bottom, like you have it on this. It just makes more sense for me for you guys to just do your narrative within the document wherever you see fit. And, I'll just send the supporting chart.
I think that's easier than going back and forth, and
Yeah.
it looks better. It gives you more flexibility too, without having to cram it into that little box.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's fine. So we don't have to really talk too much about the text today. I will make some notes. I mean, we do, it's not 2020, for instance, it's 2021. But is
And
there,
I also felt like the narrative a lot of times, I mean, this is just my opinion. Obviously you guys do whatever you want. But it was my opinion that the narrative a lot of times was really just nothing more than what was shown on the chart, which is,
The caption. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of the point of the chart. I mean, for example, the narrative on this one would be like, in 2004, we did 50%. In 2009, we did 47%. I mean, it just seems a little redundant to have a chart and narrative that is exactly the same as the chart.
Yeah, I think we would sort of amend this narrative to convey what that means from an acreage standpoint as well. Like if we know we have so many acres in Charlottesville, when you lose 5%, what's that mean? And that would
Right.
be more informative of
Exactly.
I think, from a caption standpoint.
Yeah,
right.
to me, that's more what narrative's all about.
Yeah, I think Brian made a good point. It's not to repeat what somebody can see. It's really to give sometimes how do you interpret this, or how do you analyze this? What does this mean?
Exactly.
What's the meaning of this chart?
Yeah.
That's what you need to just summarize simply.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I mean, we have put these in order. Do we want to put a number on the chart just so we don't have to do that again? I mean, I found that when I had to present this the last time, when Mike said, how do you want to do them? I couldn't figure, I knew this one was one, but then just, we put some time thinking about how these go in order. And I'm just wondering if we ought to.
Well, I think we can use last year's 3-pager that we submitted. I mean, unless that wasn't, because I thought we had worked that logic out already.
Yeah.
I guess so. I mean, it's just when we go through them again, I had to go back and figure out, I didn't have the report. So that's okay.
Okay.
Y'all don't want to do that. That's fine. But let's just, okay, so we're just going to have the graphs in similar, they'll look similar. I mean, the sort of the template will be similar. There'll be no text on it as far as Brian Ray is concerned, right?
Right.
All right. So the next one, this is a new chart, Brian Ray.
Could you go back to that last chart? I had one question about this. In the original study that was done, I feel like there was a percentage of error that was accounted for in that original study. Do you remember this, Mike, by chance? And I feel like the error was like 1.5% or something like that. Like there was a decent amount of error, kind of, or like a total 1.5, like 0.75 one direction, 0.75 in the other direction. So technically these would have been a range of, a number. And I'm not sure if you recall that, but that would be one thing to add into this caption too, if there was actually a percentage of error that was sort of noted in the study.
Yeah, I think iTree Tools says it's about 2%, give or take.
2% give or take. So either
I think it's
direction.
around, I think 2% is what they said in their but I think it may have changed over. I think the algorithm stayed pretty static over that time frame, but
Right.
I don't actually think the 2004 was iTree Tools. I think 2009 was.
Well, we'll check on that. Okay, let's move on to the second one.
Yeah.
So this has to be formatted in the same template, Brian Ray. I think we should have it should go up to 200 and it should have a red line for the goal. So that's clear.
And is this particularly the trees that are planted by Parks and Rec, or is it the entire city's goal? Because that's not clear to me. If the strategic plan, what's that?
I think it's the city's goal.
That
By
Parks and Recs.
Parks,
Okay, so
yeah.
just Parks and Rec plants 200
Parks
trees,
and Rec.
not other departments.
Because that's what the city has in their strategic plan performance measures. They just record Parks and Rec trees. They don't look at other trees.
So Brian Ray, I think we wanted this to go at least to 200 and have the red line so it's clear what the goal is. Because at least, it should be on the chart. Okay.
Yeah, maybe make it to like 220 or something like that. So it's not a little, or 240, or I don't know, somehow that this makes it look like, oh boy, we're almost getting to the top. But really, if you're at 240 on the left.
We could bring in some comparative trees from other localities. That would look good.
Oh boy.
Richmond, 2000. All right. Anyway, how far do we want it to go? Let's 250.
250 seems like a reasonable.
The goal of the tree commission, the goal of 200 trees was set by the tree commission.
Right.
So, I mean, are we just going to change it for this chart?
No, I mean, yeah, the goal, it's 200. The city council has it in their strategic plan, but the tree commission has always done 200.
Right.
No, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say the city has it in their strategic plan.
No, the city didn't
That's-
have 200 as a set number. They'd never had a set number.
They've never had a
We
set.
had that, Rox. I thought we found that. Well, anyway,
What they did, I mean, I think this is what they did. They had a strategic plan. They gave all the departments kind of performance measures to try to achieve something. And they gave Parks and Rec, initially they gave them 100 tree goal a year, which they were already planting more trees than that. So the goal was below what they were actually planting. So, which is one reason why Tree Commission said, well, we ought to
goal
have a
should be a
higher
goal.
goal than
Yeah.
what they're already doing. And Brian, I believe, went and changed that in the department's performance measures. But I doubt that city
Okay.
council ever.
yeah. All right. It is a tree commission goal for 200. So
Oh,
let's
it's a
have
department.
200 and go up to 250. Is that okay? Just trying to keep going.
Yeah.
Mike, is it just a question for you? Is it listed as a Parks and Rec department goal as well?
Yeah, I believe so, but that was based off the tree commission, what we
Yes.
agreed to and what we were able to do with staff.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm in total agreement with that. Yes. Just
Right.
making sure.
Quick question for all of these charts. Did I hear somebody say that 2016 should be included?
Yes.
Does everybody agree to that?
Yes. I think the rationale for that was that we have the data
Might
and
as well show it.
that most charts, if you want to show trends, you try to show it by 5-year increments so that we should have 5 years. And for most of the charts, we have 5 years of data. I don't think we do for the tree plantings removals, but I think we do for the other ones.
Okay.
We'll try for 2016. I know.
So going forward, we'll always have 5 years. That's
Yeah.
the plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Okay, so this one, we talked about the fact that it's a little hard to read. We made a couple of suggestions, put a darker line between the trees. I mean,
Between each
between
year.
the years, and maybe squish those two bars together. It's just a little hard to read, the year.
You can't read each year. So if the pink and the green come together a little bit closer and there's a larger gap between each year,
Yeah,
it'd be easier.
is that clear, Brian? Some way to make it easier, Brian Ray?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I'll do what I can. I don't know exactly how I can format exactly like you said. I don't know if I can make the bars closer together and make the years further apart. I'll have to just fiddle around with it and see if I can make it easier to read. I can certainly make the lines in between the years darker. I know I can do that.
Okay, well, that would help anyway.
Okay, I'll do what I can just to make it look more clear.
And the same with the text to the top, FY17, FY18, FY19. Like if those could be bigger, I think that might help too.
That sounds like a sort of a global problem. Like
Right. Got it.
every chart, I'll make all of the axes, make the labeling on all the axes larger.
And for the group, are we saying everything is FY, everything is fiscal year 2019? Because the first one says just the year.
Well, that's not on a fiscal year basis. That canopy studies are just done in a year.
Got it.
Right.
Thanks. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry. Yep.
So, yeah, so those two have FY. All right, So we'll move on.
I just want to point out, because I'm flipping through the actual report from last year and looking as it was formatted. I just want to make sure, like for this one, we would be adding 1 year's worth of data in, and I'm all for having as much data and trends. I just want to make sure that we're not creating things that are going to be so squeezed that they're not easy to read.
I think that is a possibility, Brian, that you add another year and it's going to get.
I mean, like this one is okay. The bars could be smaller and all that, but I'm just, it's going on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I just want to make sure I'm not disagreeing. I see Roxanne shaking her head. I'm not disagreeing on the data, but I'm all for readability and formatting at the end. So as long as we're all just aware of that.
Are these perfectly square?
No, so
And
they,
how-
in the report, they don't appear that way. They appear sort of more rectangular on the length. You know, we can format them, but remember, we also have to get a full column of text in on either side. So it's just a question of, you know,
Or beneath, right? I mean,
Or
or beneath, or, you know, and now we're taking the blocks out from below and we're moving that narrative into the text body. I know this is getting sort of in the weeds, but I just want to make sure that when we come to put this together, that it's a readable thing. That's all.
Well, I think when you're looking at this one, even the tree plantings versus removals, any of those I mean, you look at both of those charts, those bars or stack bars, or even these bars that we're looking at now, they can all be made now, they can be narrower.
Is that right, Brian Ray?
They don't have to put the same size in.
No, I know, I realize that. I'm
Yeah.
just saying we're just putting a lot more in there. That's all.
Yeah.
Brian Ray, what do you think? Are you there?
On the
Yeah.
chart that we're looking at right now, if I add another year, there will be 2 more bars. You've mentioned that the axes are not big enough, so the plantings and removal labels on the bottom, if you add 2 more bars to those are going to have to get smaller just so they'll fit in. I mean, it's, you know, it's probably something you're not going to be able to judge until you see it. I mean, all I can say is I can do the best I can to make it readable. I don't know what you guys do with it once you get it. You resize them, you squeeze them on 8.5 by 11 pages. You know, I have no idea of knowing this stuff while I'm making it.
Yeah.
So
I
I'll
think,
do as the best I can and send them over.
I think Brian too, you know, you can do legends also, and just do, you know, the green, a legend for what the green means and what the pink means. You don't have to
Yeah.
do it for
There's
every.
legend at the top, so I think that.
Yeah, if the legend at the top's a little bigger, you don't need the bottom.
Right.
So-
right. I think that makes sense. So you get rid of the words
Yeah.
removals and plantings at the bottom. You just keep it a larger at the top. And then you could then narrow the bar size itself to fit them all into a square, somewhat square format, more square.
All right. So let's go on and we'll add 2016.
I don't think for the last one we have 16 data. You can ask Mike, but I think we started with I don't think we have it for that chart.
Number 3.
Yeah, the plantings versus tree removals, because I think we just started counting that data in FY17. I don't know. Mike can tell me that. But
You could
Yeah.
just have the green only for that year if you wanted to keep it consistent for the years and have a blank for pink, or you could just not show it. Which one do you think?
not show it.
Not
So
sure.
you guys would rather have some charts have 4 years and some charts have 5 years instead of
I'd say just for consistency for next year, you just design this so that it fits for 5 years and then you have 1 year. You know, if this is the only chart that won't have full, 2016 data and everything else does, then you just show only the plantings and no removals. And then next year that'll be updated and you can have an asterisk there or something. I don't know.
Are we going to have 5 years for everything? Are we going to have 5 years for this one?
Yeah.
Number
Definitely.
Yeah.
Got 10 years probably.
Right.
So let's do 5 years when we can.
But you're saying so that some would be 4 years and some would be 5?
Well, we're hoping that they all are 5 except for that one we know. Is that
Right.
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So there'll only be one, except for the first one, because that's only done every so many years.
So there's 2 slides that will not be 5. Everything else will be 5.
Yeah. So this one, so again, I think this is, if we can get 5 years for this. Any other thoughts on this one? Okay.
Is there any benefit to adding the 200 line on here? But we're saying that's doesn't make it, only is applicable to Parks and Rec, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's not, we don't want to put it on this one. Here again, this is mainly to show our goal of planting large trees, shade trees.
Yep.
This one, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now this one, by localities, this year, Mike has, really did a nice thing and set priorities for us, which we have. I think we'll have to figure out how to do that next year, but I don't think we can go back. Our priorities now are low-income neighborhoods. We had 2 sets, one under 20% and one under 30% got the highest. One under 20% got the highest rating, then 30%, then 40%, under 40%. And then we had right-of-ways and sidewalk that have sidewalks and trails was another high priority. So we're going to need to figure that out for next year. I think for this year, this is what we got.
There was some question about plantings by neighborhood, if that was possible. I think we've brought that up in the past. I'm not sure if that's ever been done.
I think that was at one point, I think that was a suggestion for, a performance measure by itself would be plantings by neighborhoods. If you had enough in a neighborhood, you could just show that on a pie chart or something, or you could, it could be a separate chart. Doesn't necessarily have to be incorporated into this one. If you really wanted to show plantings by neighborhood, you could just set up a different chart.
We don't capture that data. We would have to, I'm not saying it's impossible, but does not reside in the data set currently. We would have to maybe work with IT and they could possibly use GIS, GPS type borders or, of neighborhoods to determine which trees fall in which neighborhoods. But, as we've planted trees, we haven't captured the neighborhood. I mean, obviously we have spatial location, but we'd have to translate that to a neighborhood somehow.
Do you think that's would be too difficult to do? Like, is that possible to do that, to have it by neighborhood?
If I have the list of trees, I can take care of that.
Oh.
How soon do we need this?
Because isn't the other cities kind of data? I mean, all the census data and lots of things like that are all incorporated.
Yeah, I can take care of this.
Neighborhoods.
Where is the central data? Yeah, this is all online, isn't it? Yeah. All right.
Anton, we're not.
Anson's going to take care of it.
No, it's doable. We've got the data, all the tree data. Is this not in the opendata.cville. It's all in the portal, isn't it?
Yeah, all these things are in open data.
This is all in the portal. The lat lawns and the tree data. We can get the neighborhoods. Okay.
Will we be able to get trees that are planted now? I mean, Mike, with this little bit of money, we had $7,000. Mike made a chart showing where, how he came up with the priority locations for this year. And he, didn't you, Mike?
The numbers. I can definitely get you numbers.
Even for right-of-ways with sidewalks and trails?
I just have a list. I don't really have a chart for where we're planting. That wouldn't go in until next year's report.
Yeah, I mean, every year
we
Mike
have-
will make a chart and show us, how he set the priorities,
Well, I think that's something that would be presented to council this year as what I think it would be interesting is if we showed tree plantings by neighborhoods through the years, if that's possible, that we could say, and then next year, like we have, while we only have $7,000 to plant this year, like we're actually prioritizing these types of neighborhoods. We've created a new way to look at this so that we're making sure we're not leaving anyone behind. I mean, I don't know. It might be an interesting narrative to see. I'm not sure what that result would be, but it could be pretty interesting.
Well, and I think take into account too that there have been two years of planting of trees in Belmont that should be recorded someplace. Now it didn't use city money, but it certainly used
But they weren't city
tree
land either,
commission
right?
and tree stewards. So
But Roxanne, that's not city land. So how do you, that's private property.
well, if you remember, when we first recommended, we had something like 12 performance measures that the tree commission approved. One of them, I believe, was planting on private property. We said we don't have that data now and we're not doing that, but that's something that as that happens, maybe more in the future, you at least keep track of it and see if that is something that you want to keep track of. So we've got 2 years of data on that.
Well, right now, this is planting by Parks and Rec.
I know,
So,
but you could still have another chart. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I get it. You're adding another chart that would just tack on, to.
If
additional
planting
boxes.
on private property becomes a goal and something that is important to look at, then you just add another chart that looks at neighborhoods,
right.
private property or public property.
And that's more of a tree commission, goal, sort of tracking the tree commission's sort of interest, because it's not necessarily the public, Parks and Rec interests.
Right.
So there's a separate chart that was a tree commission sponsored, neighborhood plantings, that you start to sort of capture that.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're not gonna be able to change this chart for this year, and we'll
Well,
have.
this one never changes. I think it would be a whole separate chart
It'd be
potentially.
a separate chart, whole separate.
Well, I think we definitely want to show what our priorities are, though. I mean, are we tracking our priorities?
And this would show it. This would show it.
Well, this doesn't show it.
No,
No, this is a separate discussion. We're talking about a different chart.
Right, I know. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I think it would replace this one.
No, it would not.
or add to it. Either one.
It'd be
Well,
an
add to
additional
it.
chart, not add to this exact chart. It'd be a sort of discussing the concept of adding new trees.
And an additional
I'm not talking
chart
about the
in the
private
in the written report. Correct? You're talking about adding an additional chart to the report that we send to council in advance or in the
Right.
presentation.
You're talking about doing something now? I mean,
Not this year, not this year. This is something for the,
yeah,
I think
Assuming that we keep planting in private property in future years.
well, yeah, but I'm talking about, we have set priorities for planting public trees
Right.
this year so I think the chart needs to reflect, we need to track that we are sticking with our priorities. And this chart doesn't show it. So I
A
think,
neighborhood chart
well, it's a neighborhood chart. It's
or a
different. Anyway,
streetscapes one would. Yeah.
that's going to take a long discussion. We'll need to develop that. For now, this one, we use it or not, but I don't know there's any change to it right now. This won't be changed for now. Right?
Unless you wanted to add something that was, I guess you already have right away. So yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah. So, okay, so we won't change it for now. Now, this one about to show our goal of planting in low-income neighborhoods. We think this is a good chart that Paul pulled this from, I think, many places, but he had it in his presentation. It's a good one. And let me just pull up the other two that we're sort of having trouble with. The other two charts, let me see if I can get this so you can see the whole thing. View, I keep going, view out. Must be a faster way to do this. But anyway, this one shows possible planting areas by neighborhood.
Oh, wait, I can't see this on your screen. We're looking at low income neighborhoods, so less canopy.
Oh, you are. You can't see that now?
No,
You're
From
just zooming in.
2019?
you might be sharing only this browser and not sharing your whole screen.
Oh.
It says
Let's
we're looking at the screen.
Yeah. Okay, you are sharing your screen. Share screen.
There we go.
There you go. Yep.
Yep,
Now I got
that's
it.
You see it now? Because You see it now?
We do.
Yeah.
All right. So there are two from last year that we haven't included, this one and this one.
Right.
This shows by acres how much is available. And this one shows by percentage. And
Of the
this one is a little confusing because if you look at the yellow, it says possible planting area impervious. Pink is unsuitable. But if you read the bottom, and I'll have to get up close, it says the yellow and pink represent percentage of land that is not available for planting trees. So this chart's a little confusing.
I thought we decided we weren't going to use this chart.
Right. I'm just showing them.
But
No.
it wasn't in last year's
Everybody
report
knows.
either.
These are two we have not included.
Yes, we did include this one in the report.
This I'm talking about in our
Yes.
discussion. In our discussion right now, we are suggesting that we not use these two charts. Instead, use, let me get back.
The
Instead-
other one that shows percentage of canopy in that neighborhood,
Yeah, darn
as
it.
opposed to talking about the existing tree canopy versus possible. We're now just talking about
Instead, using this one. But do you see
percentage,
one
just
that
percentage of the neighborhood. I can't see it, but I know what you're
It's
getting
the
at.
one we just sent out with the strategic plan.
But the
yeah.
the red dot in it in the
The
middle.
only reason I bring this up, if I go, oh gosh, I'm
So where
sorry.
did you draw that from?
Which
Is that-
green prints is where the percentage one came from.
Okay, so we're good to use, we should probably cite it though.
Yeah, anyway, so is it okay? What I'm asking is not to use the other two. The only thing we're not showing here is percentage land, either acreage or percent that's available for planting. That important.
That's fine. The only reason we used the other one in the past was because we were making an argument of why we chose Belmont as a starting point for planting a planting tree project, because we had the most available acres. Like we were looking for just the most available acres. That's why that slide was interesting in the past.
Yeah.
It's not getting at our new argument is less about acreage and more about percentage. So it seems that your point is right in just using this one. We're talking
Correct.
about percentage of canopy and less about acreage. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
So if we're only going to use this one, is Brian Ray going to try to set something up for us, or what are we going to do about it?
I think we would just create this ourselves. I don't think because Brian Ray is just not doing, this isn't GIS based necessarily.
Right.
This is a separate diagram that's already been made. We would just use this.
We'll just
and put
pull
it
it
into
in
our
and
report.
cite it, that's all.
Right.
Okay.
I'm wondering on the language there, sort of what Brian Menard said, which was following the strategic plan comments is, Paul, you had those good comments about the 40%, less than 40% neighborhoods as unhealthy neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's a lot of that focus is on the reason why want to focus on those neighborhoods is because of them being heat islands. It might be worth saying something on this slide about below 40% has some health consequences.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And I think technically the arrow that says faster stress recovery should stop at 40%.
Yeah.
Because beyond 40%, the studies said that, you have a normal stress recovery. It's not like if you have 100%, you have a higher stress level than 40. So it really was up until 40, you get a faster stress recovery rate. Beyond that, there's no additional benefit.
Yeah. And this text here also looks like we agree that 20% is a minimum, which 20% is a crisis, So this text is
Yeah,
not
we need
right.
to
The text is not right.
Right.
Paul, to your point about that arrow, I mean, so do we have a digital file or whatever of this where we can manipulate it, or is it just a JPEG, or what is it? What do we have? What did you get?
Paul, could you, since you've got it in your presentation, could you?
I can edit this.
You can
Yeah.
edit it? Great.
Well, you edit it.
I don't know how I did it, but I can figure it out.
Yeah.
My
Okay.
list.
Great.
I think showing the 20%, maybe we even show that under 30%, because we are targeting those neighborhoods too, which is Rose Hill and the Meadows might be important.
Yeah, I can revise this so that's more clear.
Okay. So Paul's going to do that. All right. So we're going to try to end at 1. So I'm going to move on. Now I just lost it again. I don't know if I need to share my screen, but anyway, Paul began talking at this meeting today, talking about how now we know how we use these 3 reports, which included the activity list, the written report that had the charts in it, and the state of the forest, which is more of a visual presentation, PowerPoint. We know how that was actually presented to City Council.
I would just add, Peggy, one of the things, I think it was because of the timing last year, but you could, just send them one document, which could be the annual report. It could be the annual report with, the things that we've done this. It could be one document. They could be incorporated into one document.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And the other item is our last page is usually where we're making our request to council. Do we want to incorporate those elements in the report as well in advance? Roxanne, giving that shit.
I don't think, I know, my visual cues are like, no. I don't think so, just because this is an annual report. This is kind of the status of, this is what happened last year.
Okay.
Here's where we are. I think it confusing. I think you wait till budget time to do
It's
that.
budget time. Budget
Well,
time.
Paul, in your state of the forest, you ended with what can council do? So I mean, there's an opportunity to hit some of those points.
Yeah.
And in the
That's
past,
cool.
the frustration with that is we often ask they say, what can we do to help? And I say, here's what you can do to help. One of those things is sort of raise money. We'll advocate for that later. But often it doesn't go anywhere. I don't know how to provide teeth or sort of follow up.
I think, Paul, I think your first comment was right. I mean, we're not sending them anything written that they can keep that has our request in it. I think it's a good idea to put our request in this written report.
Because otherwise it doesn't get documented.
How can you help?
Well, that's what I mean. Well, how can you help? That's not going to be, if we don't include it in the written report, they won't have it. They'll see it on the screen, but they won't have it.
It's like for years we sort of advocated for another person, managing the forest, in other departments that was sort of, managing all the departments and overseeing how they were doing the forest. But those requests fell on deaf ears, and obviously there's staffing, funding issues, and they can't. They're not going to put a whole new position in just for this.
What we're talking about now, whether we should include in the written report, we've said we're going to include the data written report, similar to did last year. We're going to include the activities. I think your first comment that let's include how they can help in it. Or otherwise, they're not going to have that document because you're only going to present it.
Sort of like our observations on the year also include where we think opportunities lie.
Yeah. What do you think, Brian? It's your report.
I could see it go either way. Let's just keep in mind too, to Paul's original point. I mean, it's nice to keep this thing to 3 or 4 pages just because they get slammed in that packet. So we shouldn't assume that it's going to get tremendous exposure at this time. I mean, we should do that in some form. We can, I could hit it. We could hit it at the end because we have that in the strategic plan. We have some really specific things we ask council to do. We could hit that at the end in the slides. It doesn't prevent us from following up with a written document with a request. But I think in either case, it either gets lost during the presentation because they move on to something else, or it gets lost in their 200-page packet. I think we have to find another way in which to get that before them. So following up afterwards, perhaps with submitting the whole PowerPoint to council, but we submit a document that says, these are requests, things that council really needs to see as priorities. I think we can do it that way.
So submit the PowerPoint afterwards and that list of priorities after the meeting.
I think you could add, I think from the strategic plan that there's some good recommendations.
Yeah.
I think those could be at the end of an annual report. I think they could be goals for next year or strategic goals or however that one phrase it with very short kind of bullets. I don't think you can flesh out everything.
Correct.
Because they'll be too long, but I think you can say these are the things that we're recommending as we go forward.
Yeah, well, that's what I agree too. Just in this written report, you send them just bullet points, just summarize, nothing long. Because actually, we've already.
But again, to my point, we've all seen the packet that council gets. We don't want that to be the only place that it goes, because it's going to get buried in a mound of papers. So bullet points are fine on the slides, bullet points are fine at the end of the report. But I think we should also try to have a document that goes to them that's just specifically about whatever our request might be for the fiscal year.
Yeah, well, of course, we've done that on the strategic plan statement, basically says that.
And
too.
then probably realistically, some follow-up discussions with individual counselors.
Exactly.
Is the way to
That
do
brings
it.
to mind the CIP public hearings are coming up pretty soon, starting in December, I think. Mike, do you know? I saw it in the paper this morning.
No, I have not been told when they're having public meetings for CIP.
Yeah, I saw it somewhere. But
Peggy,
anyway,
are we talking about the budget chart? That's the last one you want to talk about?
oh, I forgot. We haven't talked
Yeah.
about that. Sorry, Roxanne. So we just talked about the council. Let's wrap this up on the council report. We're going to basically send them one document that will have the written, similar to last year, the written data, the activities. If there's room, we might put some bullet points in there about how they can help.
Or
Right?
we can follow up afterwards with them
Or-
and saying, here's the presentation. As a reminder, these are areas where you're interested in you helping us per
Yeah.
our discussion the other day. Like, I think it makes sense to have it come afterwards as a follow-up, because then it
exactly.
could facilitate further discussions.
Okay.
Exactly, yep.
All right. So let's go back. Is that all we needed? Yeah, and so obviously we got to do a lot of work on the presentation and
Anson already got the trees per neighborhood calculations finished. Nice.
Sure, man.
Peggy, I just want to clarify
done.
though,
We're good.
in the annual report we sent
It's all
out,
there.
are we still using that same expenditures table? I mean, the same budget? CIP?
okay, well, let's go back to that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
That's
Roxanne,
what I want us to talk about before 1 o'clock.
yeah, no, yeah. The CIP chart, we left that out, and I'm sorry. Roxanne has been working on the CIP chart. And Roxanne, let me just introduce it and you can correct anything I say wrong. And then I'll bring it.
Are we going to show? Are you going to show
Yeah.
it?
Share
Yeah.
the screen.
I'm going to give an introduction first, okay? Because it's daunting. Everybody look at all the numbers.
I don't want anybody to look at it, actually.
Roxanne has set it up similar to what state requires and what city council normally sees. So it seems like that makes sense. This is a chart we wouldn't necessarily show the public because always before there's just too many numbers on it. And it doesn't show the points we want to make, like trends, like how much, we've had to give for planting, how much money we've had for planting over the years, how much money's gone to different areas. So we need to show the important points on the slide rather than this whole thing of numbers. So that's just an introduction. The other introductions that Roxanne thought that all of us thought maybe we should be looking at all the money that's spent on trees for the year and not just the CIP numbers. So I'm going to bring it up and I got to go back here.
Well, I'm excited already. Sounds good, Roxanne.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, darn.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
wait.
here it is. And then I'll have to show my screen just a second. And then might have to make it smaller. Can you all see it?
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
And it's all you.
So the idea of this is not for a presentation. It's not for anybody to look at and try to figure it out. This is just trying to get a way that the data gets collected. And, I'm saying this to Mike, it doesn't matter in a way whether it's collected in this format of a spreadsheet or as you put it into a database, but somehow the data gets collected year after year. So we have a repository. So we don't have to go back and say, yeah, what did we request back in FY16, when we wanted council to do this, so that what we're tracking is the requested amount, what you have in the budget amount, and what is actually spent. And those are sort of the three columns there. But as I said, it's just to keep track of them, keep track of the data. And the new part is And that's kind of in the, you see in the yellow. We fill in the back years. We don't have to show them next year, but we have the data for what's in the operating budget, because it seems like, what's happened now is that a lot of the money has gone over into, more money is being spent really in the operating budget than in the CIP, particularly this year when there's no money for planting trees. So to keep showing it the way we've been showing it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So this is really trying to incorporate just our tree planting in the CIP, and then the proactive, the 50,000 proactive money that went in there 2 years ago, and then the maintenance contract. And I think, Mike, you can tell me if that's correct. Those are the three main areas that we have clearly kind of identified monies. I mean, there's other monies in the operating budget, which would be staff time and things like that, but we've never really gone and looked at that. But this is a way to try to get to see what is really being spent on trees, and it's a more comprehensive and realistic portrait rather than just focusing just on the CIP. So, and I think, Mike, you actually started some of this by putting some of those operating budget numbers together at one point.
Yeah, I think it's important as part of the big picture when you look at, urban forest health as a whole. I think for, a number of years before the CIP was separated and the planting and preservation money it was how it was done separately, made more sense. There's definitely been an emphasis on tree planting funding from the commission, which is why I think there's been such an emphasis on the CIP historically.
Mm-hmm. So this is maybe a way to broaden it out. And again, this is only for a way to collect the data and to be able to look at historical data. The idea being that what would go into a report, what would go into an annual report, or what would be being able to use this data to just make charts. And you could make a pie chart out of what's being spent on tree planting, what's being spent on preservation, or you could do line charts, which would show here's the trend of what's actually being spent, or here's the trend of what we've requested from council, and here's what we've gotten from council. So there's lots of ways that you can show the data in a much easier way to the public, as long as you have that data in some type of either a spreadsheet or a database. So
I'm going to repeat what I understand. What you're saying is this chart, essentially, all these blank squares should be filled in with either a 0 if it was nothing, or a number. Like we have to backtrack.
Populate the whole thing.
We have to populate this chart, but then we will use that in future years to sort of discern what's interesting. So if, we find out that emerald ash borer treatments cost this much money, and we know that removals of ash trees go up. I mean, not that we have that as a line item yet, but we do have a line item. So we could then chart that and then say, it makes more sense to, I don't know if those are tied together, but I get what you're saying. Yeah. So this chart just needs to be populated, and then in the future we'll be able to sort of interpret that data ourselves, and then be able to convey that better to council.
Maybe we should just, I'm okay with the word chart, but to me, this is a spreadsheet or a database.
Right.
If we say chart, it sounds like something we're going to actually
present. Yeah, you just change it to data.
This is really just a way of keeping the data. And I would say to Mike too, that the city has a financial management system that has probably most of these numbers in it at some point. So this may not be the format that makes the most sense for staff if they're really just taking the information off of their FMS system. It may be that there's a better way to do this in a spreadsheet. I don't know, because I don't have access to their financial management system, but all these numbers should be out in the financial management system.
So Roxanne, I think this is great. Thank you for taking the time.
Ryan Wheeler, is there a place you can put this data? I mean, is there like a repository? Is there a standard repo for data that we can work off of?
How can we get this populated, as you say.
How can we get a centralized
filled
repo
in.
so that we're not all copying and pasting,
Yeah.
shooting emails? Do we need to have our own central repo, or can we use a city's repo? Do we need a GitHub repo that's free and open access, or what do we want to work on?
I think that's a large question.
It doesn't have
Yeah,
to
I
be.
mean,
Big question.
How do
to
we get
me,
blanks filled in?
Mike,
Well,
me,
Mike's,
I
Mike's talking.
to me, I look at this and we have all this information that exists, but like kind of what questions are you trying to ask?
Well, we want to look at the data to then ask the questions, I think is the goal.
Yeah, but I mean, there's different ways to present that, you know what I mean?
Well, no, I think the point, Mike, is we need to start with what are the numbers and then figure out what are we seeing in the numbers. And that might also drive our strategy in future years. And then what do we want to present to either council or public as to what the trends are? I think we need to have the numbers first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of things that may come up. I mean, it depends. You have city council saying, oh, well, we've been really good to the tree commission. You know, we put a lot of money in there. And then you go back and you look and you go, well, that's not really true, because we've asked for this amount of money over the last 5 years and we've only gotten this much.
So right now we need the blanks filled in. So how is that going to happen?
I can fill in the blanks, you know, for the time that I've been here. So
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is make it so that you don't have to do all the work, Mike. I mean, my goal here, the reason I'm opening my mouth, is that I'm hoping we can come up with a way that this is centralized so that you don't have to do that all the time. That's what I'm asking, is if there's like some other.
I mean, if you're only doing this once a year, I don't know how.
All right,
how complicated that is.
I mean, the biggest lift is this year. So getting that information, and then after that, it's just adding subsequent years in. My question is, and again, thank you, Roxanne, for doing this, because this is really a tool that we need. Are we envisioning that we're going to get this filled in, come up with some charts and include those in this current report, or is this for a future?
Yeah, that's a good question. How
'Cause
soon?
that's a timing issue too.
That's a Mike question, really.
How soon could you fill them in, Mike?
I don't know. Give me a week or two, I guess.
So that's possible
Probably.
to then have charts.
Well, and you can think about it this way: for this year, maybe you just do for this year in this FY20 annual report, maybe you just do a pie chart for FY20 and say, here's what was spent in FY20. That's maybe all you have to do this year. And that makes it, we're just going to use the data from the last fiscal year.
Yeah, but what's interesting to show council.
Then you have lots of different ways. And I would say also, I don't think it's just once a year that you're going to use it. I think you would use it.
But however we proceed, we're scrapping the old budget table that has appeared in past years. That's not going to be in the report.
Right.
Great.
Let's get the numbers filled in and then decide. I mean, we may want to show city council, you know, how much money they've given us for tree planting over the last 5 years, because we want to remind them last year it was nothing.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to show.
So let's say with the holidays and all that, we're talking 2 weeks. Mike said 1 to 2 weeks. Let's say, you know, it's Thanksgiving. And so we just want to make sure we have enough time to develop it.
Yeah.
Get it
So
into the
Mike,
report.
you think you could have it, give us a sort of approximate date? So while he's thinking, is there anything else, or do we have any questions from the public?
You didn't want to use you didn't want to look at those. We're not looking at those graphs. No.
Well, you sent me one, but I don't know if it's important. What do you think, Roxanne?
No, it's fine.
All right.
The public is usually Roxanne and one other person. So I'm not sure if there's,
What?
Brian Wheeler. Oh,
Peggy said, do we have any public participants who have
No.
questions?
Brian Wheeler. I don't know if Brian's got his mic muted, so I don't know if there's anybody. We have some chats here, but
Yeah, those are mostly me. I was just dropping some
Uh-uh.
stuff in there.
okay.
If anybody wants to see how to do points and polygons, it's from the open data portal. It's all there. We just need to filter it.
I'm
how
really
we
glad
want.
you like doing that, Anson. That's really.
I like being nominally useful, Paul. It
Yes,
doesn't
thank
happen
you.
all day with my life.
All
So
right. Mike, have you set a
Yeah.
date, you think?
Yeah, let me get it to you by November 24th.
Oh, that's great.
Great.
If
You know, I was going to say to Mike, you know, in some ways, and I think combining also what Anson said, is that one of the challenges is finding the information. And this would make Mike's job a lot easier and our jobs a lot easier if there was a place that we had all the annual reports, the financial reports, all that information. So every time you want to do something, or for Mike, anytime anybody from the tree commission ask a question, you have to go back and look for something. If the data was consolidated someplace, it would make everybody's job a lot easier.
Well, we're trying to have a repository for all of our documents. They're not on your server, Roxanne. So we're working on that. That's one thing we're working on. But
And we can upload documents to Civilpedia if we wanted.
well, we're going to figure that out. I've actually asked Anson to.
no, that'd be lovely. I don't care. I'm pretty agnostic. I would love to find somewhere. We were looking at UVA has the Equity Atlas, which is an open repository. I'm working with OpenStreetMap, which is another open repository for urban data. Anything would work. Google
I mean,
Docs would work
it
for
would
the
be
size of this
beneficial.
data.
Yeah, we've just talked about where to put it. It would be beneficial.
I don't know whether Brian Wheeler's listening, but that was kind of a question to ask him. I know that like with the county, there are intranet sites where certain teams that are working together, certain commissions have their own place where they can go for their own documents, not like open to the public, but it's a repository for their documents to use.
It's all foiable, right?
Brian Wheeler.
And I missed the very beginning, Roxanne.
Just where do we keep all of our documents?
You're looking
all
for
of
a
our
place
stuff?
to have a workspace?
The
Yeah.
question is whether
Yes,
the
that's it,
city
basically.
has any ability to have like an intranet space where teams that work together that include both city employees and community members can work and share documents. I know the county has that.
Yeah. So we recommend Microsoft Teams, and that allows us to use external parties as well as internal staff, and it can be a shared workspace for documents.
Would that be what we're trying to do right now, all our tree commission documents are basically on Roxanne's Google Docs, and we'd like to transfer them to something the city is,
Sure. No, that'd be ideal. Ideally, commissions are working off of city IT resources, so we don't lose anything. We can easily get things for FOIA purposes, stuff like that.
How do we get all that to you?
You would just get it to Mike, and I'm volunteering Mike here. And Mike can, if he doesn't know how, he can get help desk support to spin up a new team in Microsoft Teams, and then just send out invitations to you. Once you have an invitation, once you log in, you can literally drag and drop the files into place.
Ooh, I like this. All
So-
right, Mike.
So Mike just needs to activate it and get you invited to it.
And then
Ryan, who does the, how does it get, obviously it would have to get organized in some kind of a file system or a folder system or something like that.
We
Yep.
would do that, right?
You
I'll
would
do that. Mike, help me out. We do this at UVA. We're all on Teams here.
I've got a good ordered system for how I do things too. I could propose a folder structure that I use internally, but
Y'all can
Great.
fight over that amongst yourselves.
yeah,
thanks, Brian. That's very
Yeah,
helpful.
I'll back you up, Paul. Let me know what you want to do. I do support for the library and Teams.
Okay.
Glad to help.
So it's after 1 now, and
Yep.
so if anybody wants to go, we're going to wrap this up. Because I know some of you are working.
Can somebody send me that, the new budget sheet?
Yes, I'll send it. I put a note to send it to you.
Okay.
And it's in Excel. So that's something we'll work on. I put it down that we're going to work, because that's one of our goals. So we'll rely on Anson and Paul, and well, of course, Roxanne got a lot of the documents right now, but we'll figure this out.
I'll send a proposed folder structure to Anson and Brian and
I'll help
Peggy
out. Yeah,
after
no,
this,
just
to all of us, Emily as
perfect.
well.
I'm glad to jump in. Yeah, just let me know where I can help out. That
Yeah,
sounds
I
great.
mean, just, let's,
I gotta run.
could
Okay.
I say that Paul
Bye,
and
Anson.
Paul, wait a minute. Paul and Anson and
Hi,
Roxanne will figure it out. Don't ask me to figure it out. Don't send it to me till it's done.
Well, send it to me because I have some ideas too.
Okay. So anyway, I'm thinking they can work as a team because it's only 2
Yeah.
of them. That's what I was thinking, Brian. You know, if they need to get together on Zoom.
I'll copy you, Brian, if
Yeah,
you
they
want to
can
weigh
just
in.
copy me. I mean, I don't have to be in on the meeting, but I just want to
When
see
it's,
what's developing.
Hopefully it's not a meeting, just yeah.
yeah. Anyway, if you need to meet, then there will be the 2 of you and Roxanne can help. All right, thank you. I will write up these notes and get them to everybody.
Nice to see you all today. Happy
Yeah,
Saturday.
See you on December 1st.
Tomorrow.
All right, tomorrow, right. See y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay.